think the Lucas Paqueta transfer situation's going to get wrapped up very, very quickly. I was going to call it a saga, but it's not a saga. It hasn't dragged on at all. It'll be over almost as quickly as it's begun. And I'm a little bit gutted. I was pleased to see him put in the performance that he did against Bournemouth. Nice for him to be that professional. I know so he should be. We pay him his wages, but we've seen an awful lot of players sulk off, refuse to play, that sort of thing. He wasn't one of them. So I think I'm grateful for that small part at least. I'm gutted because he's a good player, and it always hurts at West Ham to lose a good player. And we don't have that many that give a sprinkling of magic. And I really think it's important that we replace that magic with some more magic. I sort of resigned myself to the fact that David Moyes is going to bring in a load of functional players. I have accepted that we will have less flair players than most other teams. So I would suggest maybe we have two now. We have two. And I know some people might argue that Fornals is a flair player. I think sometimes he can produce something brilliant, but generally he has sound technique, but generally works really, really hard. I would have said our flair players as of last season were Paqueta, Benrahma, and, of course, Lanzini. Lanzini's gone now, and, Benrahma, he blows hot and cold, really, doesn't he? I think he had a good season last season, by the way. But I'm talking about flair in the middle of the pitch, which I've discussed already before. We've got a couple in the younger age groups. We've got Earthy, and we've got Rigg, who's, I think Rigg will probably feature in the under 18s. Very, very good. They're not going to get used by David Moyes, not at all. So I think it's really important that we replace Paqueta with some more flair. So I was pretty disappointed, actually, to see us linked with Scott McTominay. Now, I just want to sort of quantify this, really, because people might be saying, hold on a second, you said the other day you were all right with Scott McTominay. I was, in terms of one of the two midfield things. So I was thinking, okay, maybe Edson Alvarez and Scott McTominay or whatever, something like that. Almost as a number 8. I thought, yeah, that would be great. I'm not really talking about a number 8. I'm talking about a number 10. And I know that maybe that's not always what Lucas Paqueta is, but I just feel that you do need a blend in midfield, and someone has to have that magic, that trickery, be a flair player. And Scott McTominay, for all his attributes, and I do think he's a good player, he's not a flair player. He's not a number 10. And I just think it would be a really, really sort of grave error to lose our two number 10s, really, which is obviously Paqueta and Lanzini, and not replace them. And I was a little bit worried with that. Now, I think you'll have already seen from the thumbnail that obviously I'll put it in the title of the video, that I do think there is an obvious player out there. And that's Morgan Gibbs White. But before we get on to Gibbs White, there is somebody else that I think it will be, and that's Conor Gallagher. Sometimes with these transfer rumours, they're just true. Now, I know we get linked with everybody, every transfer window, but it's very easy to operate in a West Ham bubble and think, why is it West Ham get linked with everybody? I'm quite sure everybody gets linked with everybody. I'm pretty sure that's the case. If you're the guy doing what I do on whatever, an Everton webcam or whatever, a Crystal Palace webcam or whatever it may be, and every day you do an upload of video on your club, I'm pretty sure your club gets linked with everybody. West Ham's no different, but some of them actually come true, and they tend to be the persistent rumours that don't go away. The Zuma rumour went on for a long, long time, as did Areola. Edson Alvarez, that rumour's been doing around for 2 or 3 months before we've actually signed the bloke. James Ward-Prowse, the rumour's been there for a long, long time. Eventually, we sign him. So I think sometimes the rumours just stick. They're not like silly rumours that are thrown out there, a name that's thrown out there, you never hear them again. And I think with Conor Gallagher, I do think there's going to be some validity to that. I do think that David Moyes would like him. I think as a player, he'd appeal to David Moyes. I think he's a good player. I think he's got tons of energy, and I think he's got an eye for goal. Which, again, an eye for goal is great. I think that's really good. But I wouldn't call him a flair player. I think it'd be a good addition to the squad, and I'd certainly, enjoy having him at West Ham. But it's not the person I would go for. And the person I would go for would be Morgan Gibbs White. I think he's a tremendous player. For those who've been watching Hammer Chat for a long, long time, I mentioned him years ago when he was coming through at Wolves. He had his first breakthrough season at Wolves. I didn't expect him then to go on loan to the Championship. I thought he was going to break through then. I'm surprised, I guess, when Gibbs White broke through, I think it was very, very difficult to predict that Jude Bellingham was going to sort of break through, as it were. But I certainly remember Gibbs White and Phil Foden coming through at the younger age groups at the same time. I thought, wow, these two are going to run England's midfield for years. And I think Gibbs White's probably had a little bit of a dip. He's had to go down to the Championship, I think, where he was outstanding. And then he's come back, he's got the transfer. And Nottingham Forest paid big money for Gibbs White. Big money. So he would not be cheap. But I do think he's now he's going to be approaching his peak years. I think he's an outstanding footballer. I really do. I'm surprised that Nottingham Forest got the free run at him that they did. I'm even more surprised that none of the bigger clubs came in for him off the back of last season, where I thought him and Brennan Johnson in particular were outstanding for Nottingham Forest. Maybe all of those other big clubs have got that covered. Maybe Arsenal have got it covered with Odegaard or whatever the case may be. Maybe Man City have got that stuff covered, and so on and so forth. So it is almost down, almost to the best of the rest. And I think if other clubs are not going to pick him up, maybe there's something there that we don't know, but I'm not sure there is. I mean, he looks like the consummate professional, really. There may be some tabloid stuff I don't know about, but, I'm not going to invent stuff that's not happened. As far as I can see it, he's a very, very talented player. And he seems to work pretty hard as well. And I think we should go out and get him. Now, as I understand it, I think Forest paid something like 35 million plus add-ons that would take it to 40 million, something like that. I mean, I'm in the rough area, certainly, in terms of a guess. He wouldn't be cheap. We'd probably have to pay 50, 55, 60 million pound for him. And that seems like an excessive lot of money, but let's be fair, we're losing that. We're absolutely losing that calibre of player. And we didn't expect the money from Paqueta. We really didn't. We didn't expect to have that additional money. I think almost the worst thing we can do is get the money for Paqueta and then think, well, hold on, we'll spend some of it here and some of it there. We've already got a ton of money for those other positions. We can't spend it at the moment. We really can't. And I just think to have another sort of hard worker in there, in the form of McTominay, I don't think it would particularly help us. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't relish the thought of a midfield lining up. I don't know, take your pick. Alvarez, Ward-Prowse and Souček. That doesn't do it for me. Maybe it'd be incredibly effective. Maybe it would, but I don't think it's particularly good for business. I think it'd be a hard watch. I think it's very, very difficult. It was interesting listening to Jared Bowen's comments about how the team shouldn't have sat back, shouldn't have invited Bournemouth upon them. I'm quite pleased Bowen did it, actually, and I think he's lucky that he can speak from a position of strength. And he is in a position of strength because he's not signed that contract. And I do think that West Ham are going to need a little bit of flair and a little bit of fantasy, particularly if we're going to carry on. We keep expanding the stadium. Well, the stadium doesn't need expanding. It was 90,000 for the Olympics. We just keep on making more and more seats available. I remember it went from 55 to 57,000. It was 60,000, then 62. And what they plan to do is, I think it might be by the end of this season. I might have it wrong, but I think it possibly is open it up to 66,000. You're not going to get, I think it's a miracle that we get as many as we do. You're not going to get 66,000 fans coming to the stadium every single week to watch us sit back and get 30% possession. It's just not going to happen. So I think David Moyes needs to understand the value of that, and I really hope he does. I think, having seen older games in the Premier League, I think we'll be all right. I think we will, but I don't think it's going to be a pretty watch. I don't think it's going to be good. I mean, some of the stuff that comes out of David Moyes' mouth worries the hell out of me. It doesn't seem to be any urgency from him. He seems completely cool if we don't sign another striker. That worries me. I was going to say I don't think I watch it. Well, you do, and you do. You watch it. If you watch Lou Macari's team, you'll watch this stuff. Do you know what I mean? You really will. But it's hard. It's a hard watch, and I'd just like him to bring. It's an old saying: players that get you off your seats. And we don't have many of them at the moment. As good as some of the players are, and look, Souček put in a really good performance. He was my man of the match against Bournemouth, but he doesn't get you off your seat. sure Alvarez will be a fine player, but he won't get you off your seat. Ward-Prowse, I'm talking in open play, of course. If Ward-Prowse curls in a free kick, we're going to jump up and cheer. That's not what I'm talking about. It's getting you off your seat as the anticipation builds as you're attacking it. He's not going to do that. And we're missing that. And sometimes that is just a crazy player with loads of flair. Sometimes it's a really fast, tricky winger. We just don't... Or sometimes it's just a centre-forward who's just got a fearsome shot, an outright pace or something like that. And we just don't have any of that stuff. And I really do hope, because it gives the stadium a lift, which in turn gives the team a lift. I hope David Moyes does that. I have no hope at all that David Moyes is going to go out and he's going to sign Morgan Gibbs White. I just don't think he is at all. And more's the shame. More's the shame. That's who I'd go out and get. It really is. But looks like the transfer is going to be done. And I mentioned in a previous video that Cole Palmer is wanted by Brighton. He's going to go to, and so he should. I mentioned it in another video. I'm not going to repeat myself. The chances of him, apparently he wants first team football. That's Pep Guardiola said it in the press conference ahead of Man City's Burnley game. He wants first team football. Then he's not going to get it at West Ham. You're not going to play, mate. So it's as simple as that. Really, his career would not be furthered, but by moving to West Ham, it might have a little Vlasic situation on his hands or something like that. Anyway, I'm actually looking forward to seeing who we get in, and I do hope that maybe there's a little curveball in there that we don't know about. Clearly, we're capable of signing these players as a club because someone, I still don't know who, someone signed Paqueta. So someone's identified that bit of flair, and David Moyes has put him in the team. David Moyes plays Paqueta all the time. So there's got to be some room for flair in his team. I remember him, to be fair, he had Stephen Pienaar in his... I think it's his name, Stephen Pienaar? I think it was. Might be wrong. Maybe it wasn't. Kevin Morales was another one. You are scratching round, aren't you, for it? Somebody mentioned in one of the comments on one of the videos earlier that he does have a fascination with Man United players. He does. I think it was a great spot. And it was something I was saying the other day when I was talking about Phil Neville and John O'Shea. He did that at Everton. He did seem to really like to go and get Man United players. And there's I think it's really difficult when we're in a situation where we brought in a director of football to scout around Europe and South America and find the best young talent from there. And then David Moyes is just thinking, do you know what? What about Harry Maguire, Anthony Martial and Scott McTominay from Man U? That'll do a job. You don't need scouts, do you? We can all do that. Surprised we didn't snap Fred up. I half joke. I half joke on that. I really do. And I've said it before. There's no rumours at the moment for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. None. I would not discount it. I would not discount it at all. I just think it lacks a little bit of imagination. But anyway, Morgan Gibbs White, come on, give us a little bit of fancy. I think he'd be brilliant. He would get bums off seats. He'd be an ideal replacement for Paqueta. I think he'd do really well. He's going to tick the box in as much as he doesn't... he's English. He's not going to take time to settle. He's used to the Premier League. And the added Brucey bonus, he's got a little moustache.